Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us at 8:09 in the Wave Now studio for this latest edition of Wave Extra on your Friday. I'm Jose Susaya. Been a busy Friday as far as getting you those breaking late news updates. A lot of stuff happening, not just locally, but nationally. I do want to bring you some updates, though, on the latest breaking news alert. Because if you saw some reports we were sharing from myself out on the scene in Lyndon outside of that Spring Hill Suites Hotel about that call for a potential device that caught fire, went off inside one of the rooms, and police in Lyndon calling for support from agencies across the region. Well, we've now learned the name of the man charged in this hotel fire at that Spring Hill Suites in Lyndon, and we want to show you that mug shot, if we're going to pull that up in our system right here. So we've now learned Leonard Pitchford, he's charged with not just arson, which we confirmed with Lyndon Police Chief Schroeder, but he's also now charged with 43 counts of wanton endangerment and 1 count of use of a weapon of mass destruction. What'll be interesting to find out is checking in with perhaps it would be Lyndon PD or either Louisville Metro Police's bomb squad or the ATF, which we know was called in to assist them, is what this particular charge means, the count of use of a weapon of mass destruction. What we do know is police say Pitchford failed to check out of that hotel room at the Spring Hill Suites in Lyndon. When officers opened his door, a device went off again and caused the fire. Lyndon officers, though, quickly used the fire extinguisher that hotel workers had supplied them with, pulled the flames out. No one was hurt based on everything that we were seeing out there at the scene. But I want to show you a different view of that particular scene, as we can play that out right there. So this is what our drone cameras were able to capture. No real smoke to speak of. See where the bomb squad had set up. Hotel guests at some point, having to step outside to get away from the immediate danger and talk about a day where they were going to feel the summer heat. Some told us they were waiting hours in the hotel parking lot, but better to be in that position to be safe away from whatever the danger was. So some witnesses who talked to us, and you could see here the use of some of LMPD's agents and officers wearing tactical gear. So witnesses telling us this fire apparently was on the 3rd floor. And all this stemmed from police getting a call from hotel workers to deal with the guest, in this case, Pitchford, presumably, was not checking out of the room. And staff were able to get rid of that initial, physical lock that's on those hotel room doors. The device went off, started the fire. A couple guests in the hotel telling me what scared them the most was having officers knock on the door, telling them to get out away from a possible dangerous situation. And there was no real mistaking that something was burning a floor above them, or the surprise of just having showing up to a scene where all you're seeing is a mix of different kinds of district agencies' cars. Fire trucks, hazmat trucks, police SUVs and vehicles. So here are what some of these guests had to say.
It really smelled like plastic burning.
Yeah, like a fire.
plastic.
How when a fire burns, and it smells just like that, something burning. It's got that certain stench to it. You can't never forget that once you smell it. So yeah.
Now, thanks to our crews out there, and we were able to witness what was going on. No real awful visible damage. The drone was able to kind of see from atop on the roof. No smoke that was billowing. Nothing that seemed like any serious significant damage either to people or to the hotel building itself. And what we didn't learn at some point when we had left the scene was when guests were going to get a clear timeline for when they'd be able to go back into their rooms. My understanding, there was a family we met up with as we were leaving, our crew, and that they thought they could get back in a matter of 5 minutes. So hopefully that was the case for them if they chose to go somewhere else or make do with what was happening inside of the hallway in that room right there. So we're seeing how that plays out. Now, I do want to show you some more video angles from our camera's vantage point, and you can see there's the Anchorage Middletown hazmat truck. There's a unit of different agents and investigators meeting up, trying to comb over the evidence, what they saw, what they could retrieve. Perhaps the biggest question, of course, being what is that device that went off that would now warrant this count of weapon of mass destruction for Leonard Pitchford? And we were able to talk to some more guests who were just startled and surprised by just the immediate response to try and contain the situation.
I don't know. I just know that we noticed there was an ambulance here, and that's the first thing everybody started pointing at and looking was there was a guy there. I mean, of course, everybody's gonna look because he didn't have no clothes on. But
you could tell he was on drugs.
He's on something.
He was shaking back and forth, and he was butthole naked.
So, but I don't know. I don't know who he was or something. But they put him in the back of the ambulance. So.
And a startling sight to see for those women who say they were staying in a room one floor below where police knocked on the door to arrest Pitchford. The police chief confirming to us that when they did arrest Pitchford or detain him to then send him to get treatment at a hospital and then ultimately arrest him, that he was not clothed. So a sight for them and for police to try and take control and keep the situation safe for everyone involved. And around 6:15, 6:30, the scene was slowly starting to die down. More and more of the agents, trucks, and cruisers able to go about the rest of their day and able to leave the scene in that manner. So again, as we get any updates for the case against Leonard Pitchford and whenever he's able to come to that arraignment, sit in front of a judge, plead guilty or not guilty, we'll let you know about those updates. Being a Friday, we'll have to see whether that means he'll make that appearance on Monday or just getting any updates from the ATF, again, specifically on the specificity, the details around the count of weapon of mass destruction. More stories for you on this Friday night, talking about another, again, disturbing accusations in two separate attacks that Louisville Metro Police are investigating. One involving a chainsaw, the other involving a hammer. Both items used in serious attacks this week on separate occasions. And we're going to start with one of them, a crime startling neighbors who live in the neighborhoods of these incidents. We're going to begin with people who live in Algonquin Park because they say they're praying for a child after police say a mother apparently attacked her own daughter with a hammer. So again, those were the allegations.
With attempted murder, domestic violence, a Class B felony.
And what you're hearing there was the judge talking to Zainab Abdi. So we just checked, the 6-year-old girl is still in the hospital suffering from multiple skull fractures, her mother in jail, and that's what you were seeing play out there. 40-year-old Abdi charged with attempted murder, and she answered a not guilty plea, which is a far cry from what police say she had told them when they responded to the home on Wilson Avenue Thursday afternoon. LMPD saying when they got to the house, they found the 6-year-old girl badly hurt. Police say Abdi told officers she had trouble controlling her anger and that she hit her daughter in the head with a hammer multiple times. Officers say Abdi's son even had to restrain her, and he told police she said, quote, "Let me finish her." And neighbors that our crews went out to talk to nearby the park say that they didn't want to show their faces because they're afraid of what might come their way, but they could not believe what they heard.
If she would have reached out for help, maybe this could have been prevented. But it's senseless. It's senseless.
No phone contact, no.
So you're seeing again our view from this morning's court appearance. A judge issued a $500,000 bond along with a no contact order with any minors or for Abdi with her child. She will be back in court on June 30th. And as for another case that we're following, this one involves LMPD arresting a man they say assaulted 2 people in downtown Louisville this week. And they say he even beat one of these victims with chains. And it happened on 4th and York Street, right by the main branch of the Louisville Public Library. And so, again, startling reports, allegations from what police were able to share with us. And we sent out Wave News reporter Fernando Garcia Francescini to go take a look. Fernando finding out that neighbors say it was a matter of time before something like this happened. And so we'll hear what he had to say.
Fred Thomas has been living in the old Louisville neighborhood for a decade. He says it's changed quite a lot in that time.
Well, there's a lot of dilapidated buildings and stuff like that downtown. A lot of homeless vagrants kind of walking around, people with mental health issues.
So he says, while sad, it's not surprising to hear of people being assaulted in the middle of the day in his neighborhood.
I mean, it's really bad. I mean, you can't go a single block downtown without running into homelessness and mental health issues. It seems like it's a blight on the city.
According to LMPD, on Sunday, a man was traveling in the area of 4th and York in his wheelchair when a man approached him and hit him several times in the back of the head, causing multiple lacerations that required medical treatment. LMPD says the attacker then ran away. And then on Wednesday, LMPD officers were called again to the same area after a person said they had been assaulted by a man with a chain. The officers arrested 66-year-old Gabe Payne and, while questioning him, found out he was also responsible for Sunday's assault. Payne has been charged with 2 counts of first-degree assault, and he's also charged with second-degree fleeing and evading police and second-degree disorderly conduct. In a statement to Wave News, Metro Councilman Ken Herndon, who represents that area, says, quote, "The officers' swift response helped ensure the safety of our community." Thomas says he now hopes these incidents will motivate LMPD and Metro Council to address safety in Old Louisville.
You can be going somewhere like the library and find yourself in a situation like that just because of that situation. And I'm hoping the city does something to help that situation because it's pretty bad.
All right, thanks to Fernando for that update on that report. And he also learned that Payne's bond was set at $100,000 cash. He's set to make his first court appearance. It's going to be on Monday, June 30th. So just some of those big headlines as we've been out reporting following these pressing stories throughout Friday from the morning into the evening. And so coming up after the break, we're going to take a look at some other big stories looking ahead to the weekend in the world of enjoying time out in our community, celebrating specific, events for parties, and looking ahead to some interesting sports developments in the world of local sports, in particular for U of L football and for Louisville soccer. So we're going to take a quick break right now on Wave Extra. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back, everyone. 8:23 on the dot here on Wave Extra. So hopefully you do have some, enjoyable plans, whether that's excitement, a lot of adrenaline, motion, trying to handle, some fun playtime in warmer temperatures. It is the first day of summer after all, so maybe you're enjoying the long sunset tonight as well. As for a party coming up, the Big Four lawn being transformed because the Kentuckiana Pride Festival is returning for its 25th year. But this year it's preceded by some disappointment in having to adjust some plans. And so we sent Wave News reporter David Mattingly checking with organizers, talking about actually a recent loss of sponsorships. And so he'd been talking about Pride events across the country in this situation, reporting that loss of sponsors. And so we'll show you what they've been preparing here, at least on a local level. Higher profile companies backing away from involvement in politically charged social issues. And that resulted in some cuts and cancellations to some events. So the Pride Festival not immune to what has happened, at least in recent times. Organizers say they didn't specify who among sponsors dropped out, but the amount of money they lost this time was a loss of $75,000. It's had an immediate effect on planning for this year's festival and the entertainment involved, and they believe it's going to have impacts on the parade as well. So we'll hear what the organizers had to say there.
When you think about a budget cut like that, because of a sponsorship pulling out, it just means we have to change something. And some of that begins with the entertainment.
I mean, the festival is the number one fundraiser for the foundation. So basically, when the festival loses money, the foundation's losing money, which the community and in the end is losing money. So it's like a triple effect.
Now, for reference, last year, the festival had a sellout crowd, and this year, organizers were reporting strong advanced ticket sales. If anyone was interested, the festivities are starting at noon tomorrow, with the parade starting in Nulu, ending at the festival grounds, again on the Big Four lawn. So we'll see how that crowd pans out for the weekend coming ahead. All right, switching over to sports. The Governor's Cup going to look a little different this upcoming season for this particular individual on the sidelines. Our Dusty Baker checked in on the update because the Cards making a big announcement to turn to a man to help lead their football program, a program that's got quite a bit of experience in the state, none other than Vince Mero. The move has not been a secret, but he's been a key face in the Kentucky Wildcats football program, switching colors from blue to red. And he was introduced today as U of L's Executive Director of Player Personnel and Recruiting. Now, this is not shocking, apparently, at least as Dusty was finding out. The news broke over a week ago. U of L sent out the press release. Mero was named into this role the 12th, but today we had a chance, very first time, to see the former associate head coach, recruiting coordinator, and again, a resume quite long, tight ends coach, NFL liaison, in red after having spent 12 seasons with the Kentucky Wildcats.
He's one of the best offensive minds in college football. When I was the NFL liaison, a lot of the GMs and player personnel guys, we would talk about Jeff, just his mind and how he goes about calling officers. So I'm very excited to be here. I swear I'm going to get the L's thing right. So I've been working on it.
As we try to continue to improve our team, how can we acquire the best talent across the country? And how can we find ways to bring them into our university and to play at the highest level? And I think when we're doing that, that's definitely a strength of Coach Morrow.
High praise from Coach Brom and vice versa, talking about a sharp offensive mind. The key takeaway from the press conference is the Cards feel now they have an edge in growing recruiting with Mero on their side. Resumes for both of them speak for themselves, and Mero was actually named a top 10 recruiter by 24/7 Sports in 2024. So certainly promising for Louisville football in that regard. So switching from that football to the other kind of football, racing Louisville back at home tonight, taking on the reigning NWSL champs Orlando Pride. So a lot to play for, even if it's not a postseason match for racing, but still wanted to show that they belong among the top of the league. So ahead of the match, Tawana Andrews sat down with racing's goalkeeper, Jordan Bloomer. She's making an impact in her first 2 months of being a starter and getting that opportunity.
2 things to know about Bloomer: loud, likes to have fun. That's pretty much all you got from me.
Jordan Bloomer is clearly having a blast as Racing Louisville's starting goalie, but she recognizes the unfortunate circumstances that created this opportunity.
Around and Bloomer gets a piece of that.
Obviously, losing Katie to a season-ending injury is like such a bummer for all of us, but then that meant I was up, and I was like, oh, okay.
Now that she stepped into the goal, the 27-year-old is making an impact. She made 5 saves in her National Women's Soccer League regular season debut, 3 of them in a row.
Here it comes in, it's saved by Bloomer twice, still alive, and Bloomer covers. Look at the reaction of her teammates.
The Wisconsin native had a career high of 6 saves in Racing Louisville's last home match, a victory against the Utah Royals.
I can't do my job if I don't have the full support and work of the people in front of me. And I am just not naive to that by any means.
Bloomer's all in supporting and cheering for her teammates. High fives, dabs, and chest bumps are common after big plays and stops.
If someone is going to put their body on the line in front of me, I'm going to make sure that they know that, hey, that was electric. Please keep doing that, right? Because that just makes my job easier too.
That electric energy has played a huge role in Racing having the best start to a season in team history.
Yeah, I mean, I just know that like I can't have any success without my team. So the more that I can, encourage them to keep doing what they're doing and put their body on the line for me, then I'll do the same for them.
From distance, punched away by Bloomer.
Tawana Andrew, Wave News.
And a quick update on the action as we're going to refresh this. The game is starting off not too long ago. We're in the 20th minute of play. A stalemate right now, 0-0, but look at the difference in shots. Perhaps the offense for Racing trying to get that first goal and set the tempo for the rest of the match. All right, pretty fun to see. And you can always catch Tawana's interviews with all the different players, of course, on wave3.com. That is where we have all those really fun conversations. So coming up after the break, one last little tidbit of entertainment fun on tonight. Actually, a pretty significant night in the world of blockbuster movies. Even though we don't have a beachfront, I think we'll call this a cultural phenomenon that everyone has opinions on. So we'll take a quick break and be right back with this edition of Wave Extra. All right, welcome back as we take a look at this Skytrack sunset, courtesy of this camera, observing the view into South Louisville and looking at the skyline there. Yeah, maybe you're enjoying a little bit of that last glimmer of the sun on this first day of summer and enjoying it while the sun officially sets at 9:09. Love to see these shots of our home and the wide panoramic view. Definitely cool to see. All right, before we go tonight, couldn't skip the 50th anniversary of the release of the blockbuster that started it all, the movie Jaws. If you remember when you were back in the day, a monster hit in 1975, massive when it comes to just the legacy of summer movies. In fact, some argue Jaws changed the course of Hollywood. So to commemorate the milestone, NBC, which is the station here for Wave, they're airing it right now on our regular broadcast channel. And so reporter Mark Barger touches on the film and its cultural impact.
Sharks are actually trying to avoid people to the extent that they can.
But sharks grab headlines and sometimes provide punchlines. One shark even generated long lines of moviegoers when Jaws dominated the summer of 1975.
It was #1 at the box office for 14 weeks straight. That means that Jaws was the #1 movie for the entire calendar summer of 1975.
The story of a giant shark terrorizing the waters of a small New England beach town.
You yell shark, we've got a panic on our hands on the 4th of July.
Became a phenomenon
taps into a fear that so many of us have while we're sitting at the beach on vacation. What could happen to us when we go out there in the water?
Filled with memorable scenes and iconic lines,
"You're gonna need a bigger boat."
along with John Williams' menacing score, this adaptation of Peter Benchley's novel ignited the career of a 27-year-old director named Steven Spielberg.
Anyone who sees Jaws for the rest of their life remembers where they were when they saw it, how old they were, and how it made them feel, and how scared it made them.
And Jaws' box office success meant the approach to summer movies changed forever.
Before Jaws, I don't think Hollywood studios really realized the power of the summer box office and the potential of it.
But after getting that first bite, Hollywood's been feasting on summer blockbusters ever since. Mark Barker, NBC News.
Yeah, talk about cultural impact as an understatement. Along with a big box office, of course, Jaws was a critical success as well, if you care about the accolades involved at the end of the season. Oscar nominee for Best Picture. It did lose out to One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. The film still won 3 Oscars for sound editing and original score, and Steven Spielberg missed out on a nomination for Best Director. So if you were interested, the movie is playing again right now on regular Wave 3 to enjoy the 50th anniversary for us. All right. That's going to do it for this edition of Wave Extra. Always appreciate you joining us on the Wave Now app, where you can always download through your smart TV and device there. And of course, on our social channels, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, X. Love to connect with everyone on those platforms as well. Hope you all enjoy the rest of this Friday night, the official start to summer. Looking forward to the weekend. Take care, everyone.